Hi, everyone. Welcome to PeopleMetrics Live. Today, we're going to show you 5 survey questions you need to ask customers after a recent experience. So, Sean, before we dive into these 5 survey questions, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about the post-transactional survey, or the survey that you send to customers after a recent experience. Can you tell us a little bit about why companies send post-transactional surveys and what the desired outcome is there?
Right. Well, we've all received them, right? So after we've been on a phone call, after we visit a hotel, a store, a restaurant, almost any kind of scenario you can imagine, you get one of these surveys, immediately after that experience, or perhaps even during the experience in some cases, right? So these surveys tend to be short. It's really as short as humanly possible to get the information you need. And they're quick to fill out. But companies do them for a couple of different reasons. One, they get an indication of whether you had a good or bad experience. If you had a bad experience, they can follow up and reduce churn. And we've done PeopleMetrics Live on responding to alerts, right? An alert might be triggered if somebody had a poor experience. So it's really acting on that result is really important. And then there's a bunch of other, I think, use cases that I think, Audrey, people are low-hanging fruit that people just don't realize that they can do with these surveys. We'll talk about a couple of them today. But it's really to act. The number one reason is to act on the feedback, that to indicate and achieve a certain outcome or behavior. And then there's like the need to get NPS data to management, right? So these surveys tend to have Net Promoter Score as one of the questions. Management takes a look at those. Many companies, it's a KPI, so that reaches the boardroom, and they might be looking at that on a quarterly or monthly basis. So that's the other reason that, I think these surveys get sent out so often.
Yeah, and it's important to, what I'm taking away from that is there's, different ways that different types of surveys, like a relationship survey or any other kind of like market research, longer form survey where you might do a deeper dive, but everything that you just mentioned is really action oriented, right? Like around reducing churn and everything that you mentioned. So thank you for that. That's a good just overview of what these surveys are about.
So the problem with these surveys in general, though, Madeline, not everybody keeps that in mind, right? So we've all received these, and some of them are way too long. Some of them are people are trying to sneak market research, longer form surveys into a post-transactional situation, which is never a good idea. They ask way more questions than they need to, and I don't think they have a plan often or sometimes on what they're going to do with this information for each and every question. So what we're going to show today are 5 what we consider really key questions to have on any transactional survey. 4 of which I'm sure that it's going to make sense and you're going to say yes, yes, yes. Maybe the 5th one is a little bit of a surprise. So we wanted to put out something that might be a little bit intriguing to you, but all of them have some sort of actionable component to them, and there's a true purpose for them. And you could have a survey, right, Audrey, with just these questions, and it would be a really, really solid post-transactional survey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Sean, what you said is right, that we often see where each department is trying to squeeze in questions about what they're particularly responsible for. And then you end up having this disjointed survey it's not a great experience for customers to take. And so you want to make sure that you remember that your survey is actually part of the overall customer experience, that you're asking questions that make sense. You have to provide the opportunity to give feedback, but you don't have to ask about every tiny little thing that could have happened or might have happened. Your respondents will make the effort to tell you what they want you to know.
Definitely. And that's a really great point around it being part of the experience. And, I wholeheartedly agree on that. And there's other venues to have a deeper dive conversation with customers. Like Madeline mentioned, a relationship survey is a great venue to do that. Those tend to be 10 to 15 minutes. They're longer form. They're a deep dive on the relationship. They're a deep dive on maybe competitive offerings that the customer may have experienced. You can compare yours to the competitors. There's an expectation on those longer surveys that it's going to be longer. Sometimes there's a sweepstakes, sometimes there's an honorarium. There's no honorarium typically or sweepstakes in a post-transactional survey because it's supposed to be quick and short, right? So, we've done, I think, PeopleMetrics Live on relationship surveys and I think they're on the YouTube channel somewhere, and they're all over my book, Listen or Die, if you want to read about relationship surveys. There's a good chapter or two on that.
All right, guys, are you ready
Yeah.
to dive into the 5 questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question, this isn't a surprise, right, Audrey? This is a question really that would be on any kind of experience-based survey to customers, whether that be relationship or transactional. And people would say, well, why are you including Net Promoter Score, which is a relationship question? There's no doubt it is about the relationship you have with the customer. It's a cumulative measure. We've done PeopleMetrics Live on Net Promoter Score. There's 2 chapters in my book, Listen or Die, on this. But why do we always include these, or almost always include these in post-transactional surveys?
There's a bunch of reasons. One is that it's a measure that everybody understands. And you mentioned it in the beginning that this NPS is a KPI that reaches the boardroom. So one is that you need to continually measure it to see how it's changing over time, to see what you might need to do and how your customers are reacting. Another reason is that you can look at individual NPS scores over time. So if I had 3 separate interactions with your company over a period of time, my NPS might change based on those interactions, and you want to know that. Maybe I had 1 bad experience, but my NPS, I'm still a promoter, but after my second bad experience, my NPS drops, and that's something that's important. So to be able to look at that over time is really valuable. And the other thing is, we know people don't like NPS. We've heard that, but it's been shown to reduce churn and is a useful tool when looking at your customer experience data. And so we highly recommend that you use it as sort of a table stake measurement at this point. And it can be used to benchmark against other like companies, so you can see how you measure up against your competition.
Hi, it's Madeline. Thanks for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live. If this is your first time watching, PeopleMetrics Live is a weekly live webinar session where experts from our team answer your questions about customer, employee, and patient experience measurement and management. And sometimes we show you how you can achieve your goals using tools within our experience management platform. We've been doing this for over 2 decades now, and this is a great way for us to share all of our knowledge with you. You can sign up for upcoming sessions of PeopleMetrics Live at www.peoplemetrics.com/events and bring a friend.
Right. I mean, I have a chapter in Listen or Die that's basically titled, I believe, you might not like Net Promoter Score, but you have to use it anyway. Right. Like it's just the standard. It doesn't hurt you. Yeah. Is there a better question to use? Potentially. But it doesn't matter, because the value of this, because of the comparisons to other companies, to the familiarity with people in the boardroom, the CEO, the C-suite, you just need to use it. And customers are also used to this question. They don't usually make mistakes on it, which is another really key point. Like, they're not going to be messed up by the scale. And you throw that in as the first question in the survey in your email invitation, which we've done at PeopleMetrics Live on too. You'll get a bump in response rate if this is the first question in your survey and it literally sits in your email invite. It's a great way to start a post-transactional survey. People are familiar with it, they'll get going. And often we'll put a why after this one too, right, Audrey? Yeah. Like an open-ended question potentially.
Yeah, this is a good place to put an open end to get some more information about why they're recommending you or not, and what they're feeling.
Right. And for people who haven't been on our past PeopleMetrics Lives or aren't familiar with Net Promoter Score, just real quick, Net Promoter Scores are those customers who indicate a 9 or a 10 on this question. They're considered promoters. They're very likely to recommend. And the people who are considered detractors are those that indicate very unlikely to recommend. And that's measured by 0 to 6 on this scale. And the Net Promoter Score, which is why it's called Net Promoter, it's the 9s and 10s minus the 0 to 6s. So it's the promoters minus the detractors gets a Net Promoter Score that can range from -100. So if every single customer that you have indicates 0 to 6 in terms of recommending, which is very bad, that could be -100, or everybody would say 9s or 10s, that would be +100. Usually it's between 20 and 60. Great scores are above 80. You do see some scores in the 0s range, little negative. That's a very, poor experience typically. But it's something that, people are going to recognize this score, and it's a good thing to calculate immediately. And there might be an alert triggered off this, right? Audrey, often we do trigger an alert off this question.
Yeah, definitely. When respondents are detractors, meaning they scored between the 0 and the 6, we often trigger an alert to say, hey, you might want to check out what's going on with this person. They seemed unhappy.
So this is just a great way to start. This is one of the 5 questions you should ask without a doubt. It's easy. You can check the box and you can move on. All right. So this is a really important question on post-transactional surveys about a recent experience, right? So you're asking Net Promoter Score, which is great. And that's an overall relationship question. Would you recommend? This second question is specifically about the experience they just had, whether that's a phone call with a support agent, whether that's a visit to a store, checking out of a hotel, finishing a meal, whatever it is. This is about that experience. And the reason why it's important to have both of these is, you could have a customer who has a pretty good overall relationship with you. They might recommend you, might be very likely to, but they may have had an experience just recently that's poor. And you want to be able to nip that in the bud. So as Audrey said, the next time you ask them about Net Promoter Score, they don't go from a promoter to a detractor. Because a lot of Net Promoter Score, it's a lagging indicator in many ways. So, they're waiting to see if you've made things right in a lot of cases. And if they have a really poor most recent experience, you can make that right on a post-transactional survey by calling up the customer or contacting the customer in some way to understand what happened and provide something. It doesn't have to be a monetary something. It can be a sorry something. It can be a, what, Audrey, other like incentives to come back something, right?
Sure, discount or incentive, or I think oftentimes even the just, we're really sorry this happened, the acknowledgement is valuable.
Just that recovery experience is an experience, right? That's an opportunity, like you were saying, to bring someone's perception back into a more positive light overall. Did you know that you can watch past sessions of PeopleMetrics live right here on our YouTube channel? All you have to do is click the link above. Be sure to check them out for answers to dozens of questions, along with stories, tips, short tutorials, and best practices from our team of experts. You can click the bottom right corner of this video to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update.
So we may ask why here too. And Audrey, often we might just ask why is an open-ended question, right? And we don't have these as part of our 5. These are kind of follow-up questions to the core question. So if we had a post-transactional survey, we might only ask one open-end, right? From these first 2, if we want to keep it short.
Either one or the other, depending on, what the goal of the survey is and where it makes the most sense for each individual client. But yeah, just, you don't need to ask why after every single question. Just after one of these will get you what you need.
So if we were in a relationship survey, we absolutely 100% of the time would ask why after NPS. That would be like, that's not optional. That's what you do. For transactional surveys, I think more often than not, we'll ask the why after the recent experience if we're going to choose, simply because we're trying to get more information on that most recent experience for follow-up.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why this recent experience question is so important. This really gets at the crux of what just happened, and what do we need to know about it? So that's why we ask why here.
Here's an example. Let's say you had a poor experience with a support agent that you called to have a question about your bill, right? You may get Net Promoter Score, and you're still very likely to recommend this company. And if you get an open end on that, you can start talking about all the things that you've gone through. This company has provided, let's say it's an insurance company. This company's provided quick claims. I've been with them forever. I feel like, they're part of my support network. I feel safe because I have this insurance, all this stuff. But if you ask it after that, the open end after the most recent experience, you might say something like, the agent was not knowledgeable. They didn't understand my situation. They weren't empathetic to to how long I've been with the company, with your company. And I was really disappointed in this experience. You might get 2 very different open ends, which is why if it's open-ended responses. So if that's really what you're looking to do, and on most post-transactional surveys, it is follow up from the most recent experience. the open end, and if you want to keep it short, which we do recommend, it comes after. Audrey, this is a favorite of yours. Why don't you take this one?
Look, you have to ask, did you experience a problem? And there's different ways to word it, but that's what you want to know. In this interaction, in your recent transaction, was there an issue that needs to be addressed? And if the person says no, then great, we can move on. We don't have to ask any follow-up questions. If there was a problem, then we need more information, right? We need to know what happened, what category did your problem fall into? Was it related to the check-in experience or the checkout or room service or the restaurant or the cleanliness? What was it related to? And then give us more information. This is a good place to put an open end so we can find out exactly what happened. Sometimes we asked whether the problem was resolved or not. We just want more information if you did have a problem. If you didn't, we ask quick, did you have it? Yes or no. If it's no, you can move right on. It's just for those people that did have a problem, it's really important that you find out exactly what happened so that you can figure out the best way to address it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really important question for service recovery, right? And categorization of what was the root cause of the recovery problem, right? And, this is the heart, I think, of post-transactional surveys. It gets at kind of a lot of metrics that you can start calculating, right? So you can start calculating what percentage of our experiences was there a problem that occurred, right? And you want to have that as low as possible. And that's a number that you can compare month over month, quarter over quarter. You can break that down. If you have locations, you can start comparing for say bank branches, what branches are experiencing the fewest problems, which ones are experiencing the highest percentage of problems. You can really start to pinpoint, who's performing well and who isn't. And then you can really get into, okay, what's going on and what happened. So when you follow up with that customer, you have a really good idea of what triggered that issue. And this cascades up to these first two questions. Most likely, if someone has a problem, their recent experience isn't good. That's often the case, right? These are highly correlated.
Yeah.
And it may even bleed into NPS too. If it's a big enough issue, NPS also might be affected. So here's one, number 4. Here's another question we would always recommend to ask. And this is sort of the opposite of problem, right, Audrey? Like everybody thinks about, we got to get to the problem, but what about getting to the exceptional experience, which, you're probably delivering more often than not. Problems should not be a high percentage. I mean, they should be way under 10% of your interactions, close under 5% ideally. Recognize means, did anyone that the customer interacted with go above and beyond in their recent experience? These are typically people who go above and beyond. And if there is someone, just like in the last question problem, we would ask a few follow-up questions like, who was it? Do you remember their name? And what did they do to go above and beyond? If nobody did go above and beyond, somebody says no, and they just move on. It's quick.
Our founder and CEO, Sean, wrote an amazing book about customer experience management called Listen or Die, 40 Lessons that Turn Customer Feedback into Gold. It's a deep dive into best practices for CX measurement and management strategy based off of Sean's years of experience in the space, and you can easily read it front to back on an airplane ride. Pick up your copy today. It's available now on Amazon.
So Audrey, this is one of our favorite questions, right? For a few reasons, right?
Yeah, so definitely the opposite end of the spectrum from problem, but it's still so important. It's just such a good opportunity to hear positive stories about interactions. It's an opportunity for you to recognize staff members or employees after they've been called out by your customers. You can turn around and say, hey, we got this great story from a customer. Now I know that you did this for them, or you had this interaction with them that left such a positive, lasting impression. So great way to recognize employees, and then also a great way to know who of your customers are having really good experiences that you can reach out to and say, I'm so happy you had this great experience. Would you be willing to leave us a review here? Or would you be willing to participate in a testimonial, or just other opportunities open up when you know about these positive experiences?
You probably get some great surprises on this question of things that, we talk about in PeopleMetrics Live a lot about intentionally creating experiences. And there might be some that you know, the way that a certain employee acts when they're empowered off of your values, they act a certain way, and it really wows a customer. It could be some new ideas for things to weave into your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to this question. It's true, Madeline. You're learning about delighters that you may not even have realized. You're learning about who your best people really are, not based on politics or other nonsense, but based on what the customer thinks of the experience they're getting. And you're also getting kind of what are the characteristics of the people that we want to hire in the future that are truly delighting customers. You know, there's all of these benefits from this question. And we've even had clients, Audrey, right, create like a little award from this, like the top 3 people who got the most recognition, you know, results or recognition yeses get some sort of award at the end of the year. And that's a really inexpensive way to boost employee engagement and reemphasize the right behaviors.
Totally. Yeah.
And that really is that, you know, the customer centricity that we all are after, right? And when we're doing CX is when you've got your people and your employees hearing from the customer in those positive ways, it really can connect them to that experience.
You know what else, Madeline? Like, problem is so important. And look, we understand that that's the crux, and you want to save customers, and that delivers ROI to programs like this. But you know, some of the problems are going to be with your people, right? It just is a reality. And those people are going to be a lot more responsive to hearing this customer feedback if it's balanced by this positive feedback from the recognition alerts. This should not be a beat down exercise. It should be something that is about creating a better customer experience, right? And yeah, you might have some employees that need that might not be a great fit because the customer feedback that you're getting isn't what it should be. But for most of your people, I mean, they're human. They're going to make mistakes sometimes. They're going to hear feedback they're going to get better on. But if you can give them also the feedback around how great they've done with certain customers, they're going to just be more willing to, you know, change to create that experience and be customer centric, like what everybody wants. Because customer centricity is a lot about your people. It's all about your people. You know, it doesn't really matter what product you have. Even if you don't have a product that you have your people facing customers, you still have people creating software. You still have people doing, you know, whatever your product is, it's created by people. Even if it's AI, somebody created the AI, so that AI delivers something to customers. So having, you know, understanding that is really, really important. And I'm a big fan of this isn't even optional to me. A client would really have to fight us to not have this on here. Right, Audrey?
Yeah, recognize can just be really motivating, and it's such a good opportunity to include the positive and disseminate it within your organization.
And it doesn't take a lot of time. It's really a quick question. All right, this is the last one. This is kind of the one that the first 4 you may have even heard us talk about before in other PeopleMetrics lives. But this one is one that I think is really interesting, and it just shows you how like customer experience feedback is so different than, say, market research, where it is truly an actionable program that gets business results. That's what customer experience feedback should be. And there's a question that we often ask for our clients, and that to their customers or clients, and that is, are you interested in any additional products or services? And it's just simply a list of additional products or services that our client offers that customer or client might not know about. And if they check that box, it simply goes to the sales team as a lead that they can follow up on, or the account management team, however you're structured.
Yeah, this is just a way to say, hey, these people might be interested in these things. Let's check in with them and give them some more information. And so you're able to take this opportunity to get all the information you need from your other questions and find out, is there anything else they might be interested in? Now, we can hide this question if somebody had a really terrible experience and you don't think it's appropriate to ask.
Yep.
If you have a detractor who had a really bad recent experience and had a problem, maybe we're not going to ask them. But somebody who had a good experience, who is recognizing somebody who, is overall happy with their interaction with you, want to hear about some additional products or services that you have, and this is a good way for you to gather that information.
Yeah, and you can build
Absolutely.
awareness as well, right? Like some people might not know about certain products or services that you offer. So
Yeah.
this is a great awareness opportunity as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for walking us through this this list of questions. It's just a great way to see everything at once and get some examples of how people use this and can use this when they're asking questions after a recent experience. We are at time here, so I want to thank you both for taking us through these questions. I hope that this has been a valuable conversation for everyone we've got on the line today, and I'll make sure that when this goes up on our YouTube channel, we include a link to download that list of questions that we shared. And on behalf of everyone here at PeopleMetrics, thank you for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe right here so you never miss an update. And have you checked out other sessions of PeopleMetrics Live yet? You can click right here to watch them all. I'll see you there.